Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Credit Chat. I'm Rod Griffin, Director of Consumer Education and Advocacy for Experian. Beef fried rice, love that. Good to see you. Not sure why the light is so strange today. It's the first time that's happened in a long time. Thanks for being here, Prime Credit. Thanks for joining SF 2006. Thanks for being here. If you have questions about credit reporting, credit scoring, fraud, and identity theft, please feel free to ask. I'll do my very best to answer. If it's your first time joining, as I said, I'm Rod Griffin. I'm Director of Consumer Education and Advocacy for Experian. This is Credit Chat. And the whole idea here is that we share information with each other and help educate people about how to use a credit report and a credit score as a financial tool. We don't want them to be mysteries. We want them to work to your advantage and to be a financial tool. So that's what we try to do. Jetty, 777, how many sevens? 77777. Why y'all sell my email address? From a credit reporting standpoint, we don't. And from a marketing standpoint, I'm not sure that we do. When we get an email, it's part of, if you share it with us in some of our marketing services, as well as potentially some of, if you enroll in our credit match services, for example, we may provide contact information that you share with us. But it would be opt-in, and so you would use that information and tell us you want to receive offers, that sort of thing. We would do that. So that's my best guess. But otherwise, we don't, and an email wouldn't be part of a credit report, so it wouldn't be an issue there. Beef fried rice. What's the best way to get rid of debt fast? I must be in a funny mood, not funny, but a sort of sarcastic mood, maybe an inheritance or win the lottery. I know, it's a terrible joke. So apologize for that. It might be one of those days. But really, to get rid of debt, there are a couple of approaches that everybody looks at, suggests, and there's usually no quick way. Yeah, me too. I'll never win the lottery, as I have no luck with those kinds of things. If you're looking at reducing debt, sometimes it's not about getting rid of all of it. It's about being able to reduce the debt gradually and consistently over time, and you'll see your credit scores improve. But there are a couple of approaches, especially when it comes to credit card debt. You can pick the credit card with the highest interest rate, pay that balance off first, and then take that payment and roll it into the next card that you're trying to pay off, or an installment loan, or whatever it might be. So one approach, and the math always says that if you pay off the highest interest rate card first, you will reduce your debts faster and it will save you the most money. However, sometimes when you do that, if you have a card with a really high balance, it may seem like it takes forever. You get frustrated and you give up, and that defeats the purpose. So if you take a card with a lower balance and you're able to pay that off, see the change quickly, take that payment, then roll it into a card with a higher balance or higher interest rate, and you stay motivated and you keep working on it, that to me would be better, because it keeps you moving toward that goal. It can really kind of knock out those debts a little faster, even if they're smaller. And that's what's important. So you have to do what works for you, is always my advice. Do the thing that works for you. Find the way that works for you. There's always the issue of getting a budget, putting it together, making sure that you know where your expenses are going, what your income is. You might find ways and assets or other resources to reduce those debts faster. So it takes deliberation, consistency, kind of the most important things. I'm rolling down, and I apologize if I don't get to your question or if I miss it. Please repost. No, I'm not trying to skip them as they come in. They come in faster than I can answer. How long does it take to have bankruptcy Chapter 7 come off of a credit report? So Jetty 777, I need better glasses. 77777. It takes, for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, the public record remains for 10 years from the filing date. So the date that you filed for bankruptcy. The accounts included in the bankruptcy will be removed 7 years from the original delinquency dates of those bankruptcies, of those accounts, if they were delinquent before being included in the bankruptcy. So usually the accounts come off before the bankruptcy public record, but it's 10 years for Chapter 7. Chapter 13 bankruptcy remains for 7 years from the filing date for the public record. When is Boost going to be expanded? I was looking forward to this feature only to find that it's not. In your area, it should be. Experian Boost isn't area specific. It's national. And so if you go to Experian.com/boost, You can have your positive cell phone payments, positive utility payments, cable TV, satellite added to your credit report. And as a result, you can see for 2 out of 3 people, we're seeing score increases of about 10 points. For people with thin files, we're seeing actually average increases of around 19 points. So seeing some really good increases. So it should be available. Go to Experian.com/boost. It's not specific to an area or region. It's for your credit report. So you're giving us permission to go into your checking account or savings account where you pay the utility bill or your cell phone bill each month, capture that payment and pull it into your credit report as an account. And so we'll then continue to update that information. We will go back up to 24 months if those payments are present in that account. So we can capture those. You'll have 2 years of history right away. And that can help improve that score. So it only applies to the Experian credit report. So maybe that's part of the confusion. But it should be available where you are now. If your bank or your credit union is in our list, so we're expanding that list all the time too. In some cases, when I first tried to enroll in Boost, my bank, had a small regional bank, and it wasn't in the list of banks who had been signed up yet, but not a problem now. So it may have been just that your bank or your credit union wasn't enrolled yet or signed up yet, or not using the right phrases today, but not included in that process. So that might have been the issue. So just a couple of guesses there. When it comes to Experian Boost, is it okay if you pay the bills that count from different accounts? Yes. So what will happen is if you have accounts and you're paying, if you have a utility bill that you pay through one checking account, you have a cell phone bill that you pay from a different account, you would tell us go into this account and this is where you'll find that bill payment. Go into this account, you'll find this bill payment. You'll be able to sign up for all of them. So you don't, if they come from different accounts, you enroll in with those accounts, and you should be able to do that with multiple accounts and multiple bills. So, and still be able to get the boost. And just look for another job. It will help. Beef fried rice. And you know that's a really not a bad suggestion. I mean, you talk a lot of people. When I was saving to buy my house a long time, 20 years ago, I worked for Experian full time, but I got a weekend job so I could save more. I did data entry at a company my wife worked for. So I was working Saturdays and Sundays doing data entry just to make more money to put aside to make sure that our savings was where it needed to be, that we paid down any bills we had. So I've done that, and so it's certainly a viable option and one you can do. It told me I couldn't, but it was back in its exception. I'll check again. So in its inception. So that may be. And if your lender isn't in, or your bank isn't in that list, I think we give you a chance to let us know and just tell us my lender's not there, and we'll try to work with them to get them included. Do school loans in deferment lower your score? Generally, no. If they're deferred, they're not in active repayment. In most cases, scores would exclude them from the calculation. Only accounts that are in active repayment are usually included in the score. So if you're deferred in forbearance, generally they don't. And I did that too. I had my student loans deferred. I went through hardship forbearance, hardship deferment. I worked for a newspaper and made $13,000 a year, and I calculated at one point I was making $2.60 an hour or something. Then I went back and started reevaluating my career. I loved working in newspapers. So one of the most rewarding things I ever did from a personal standpoint, but not so much from an income standpoint at the time. So it was a bit of a challenge right out of school. So it wasn't listed. So that's likely it. School loans count in total debt. Yes. So if you have student loans, they are included in scoring calculations if they're in active repayment, just like any other debt would be. So they're just like an installment loan. So an auto loan, a loan from a store, any of those kinds of things, they're just the same. They're an installment loan. So a little different than in a revolving account, which is like a credit card, but it would affect scores in very much the same way. So if they're in deferment, probably wouldn't at that point because they're not in repayment. So they generally aren't included in those scores. You'll probably see them in the credit report. You should see an account status of deferred. So make sure they're reported that way and work with your lender if they're not to make sure that they're reported, the status is reported correctly for those accounts. Can a creditor keep prolonging the negative info in your report? No, I mean, if you're thinking about if you have a late payment, it's reported as delinquent, what will happen is an account is reported late from a credit reporting standpoint. An account is late after you've missed a full billing cycle, so 30 full days. So it's a 30-day late payment. So that's why you see 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. It's not 1 or 2 days. So if you're 30 days late and then 60 days late and then 90 days late, you would see that kind of revolve that way, and you would see those add up. And then if you are unable to pay that account, eventually it's going to be charged off as a loss. That account would then show a status of charged off as a loss or charged off, and likely would see a collection account after that. And then that collection account would be the active debt on the credit report. So what happens in that case is that first month you were late, that original delinquency date, is the date that drives when the information is deleted. So if you miss a payment, 7 years from that missed payment, that payment will come off the report. If you miss a payment, never catch up, the account's charged off as a loss and it goes to collection. That original delinquency date is the date that drives when that information is deleted. So if it goes to collection, the collection agency is required by federal law to report the original delinquency date from that first account. And so they cannot change that. So they can't cause it to remain longer. And if you see information that's been there longer than 7 years from the original delinquency date, and that's the key. And people tell me it's been there longer than 7 years, but it's 7 years from the open date or 7 years from some other date that's in the report. Those aren't the things that drive it. So make sure you understand the original delinquency date, what it is, and 7 years from that date, that late payment, and if it's consecutive late payments, all of them should fall off, including the collection account, and they cannot change it. We do know the original delinquency date. That has to be reported to us by the lender and by the collection agency if it goes to collections. So we'll show that, and we'll show this account will be deleted as of, and give you a date. If you subtract 7 years, that will give you the original delinquency date too on your personal report. So you should be able to either see it or calculate it based on the information in the report. If you have a late payment and you catch up and bring the account current for a month or two and then you miss again, you could have 2 original delinquency dates. That's when it gets a bit confusing, because you were delinquent, you had a 30-day late payment, 7 years from that date, it would be deleted, and then 2 months would pass because the account was brought current, and then the next late payment would fall off. So keep that in mind too. It can be a little bit confusing in that way. How close in time should I get credit unions to pull my credit for best auto loan rate? So you don't want to affect your scores negatively. So good news there, Revelation Ruth. You don't have to worry about your credit scores when you're applying for an auto loan. The scoring systems recognize that you are applying for one car loan to buy one car. And so even though you will see those inquiries, which is what everybody worries about, you'll see the inquiries for those auto loans, the scoring systems automatically recognize that, hey, you're looking for the best rates. And so you need to count them as only one or exclude them. So the newest scoring systems from FICO and VantageScore will actually recognize those auto loan inquiries and exclude them from the calculation altogether. So they have no effect at all. The older scores might lump them together as one. So they have really very little or no impact. So you can shop for the best rates. If you go into a dealership and they want to, what we call shotgun your loan application, let them. That's not going to hurt your scores in any meaningful way, if at all, and it's going to help them find the best rates for you. I always recommend too that you go to your credit union or your bank and get pre-approved, and that way you'll know what you'll be approved for by them. And if they find a better rate with someone else, fantastic. If not, you're pre-approved on what you can afford, but you don't have to worry about your scores when you're shopping for auto loan if they right up to the time you apply and find that car you want. So don't worry about that too much. We will know the original delinquency date. We talked about that a little bit. I have 2 medical collections you've disputed through Credit Karma. Is there anything else I can do? So I believe, check your Experian report, because Experian is not a partner with Credit Karma. TransUnion Equifax fund that organization, and they are a competitor to us. But if you go to Experian.com, you can get a free credit report. If you go to annualcreditreport.com, you can get a free report. So a number of places that you can get free reports and scores. If you need to dispute information, those medical collections, just go to Experian.com/dispute. We will give you a free report right there. We'll just ask for some identifying information and provide that report online through a secured system. and then you can find them and click dispute right next to them if they're there, and dispute that information and move forward that process. And it's free. There's no cost for the report or those sorts of things. So straightforward. So now 2 week span or 30. Yeah. Well, so what they say is if you're going to apply, it's a good idea to apply within a 30-day time frame, just because that's kind of how the scores will look at them. They'll search for usually inquiries within 30 days. It used to be 30 days within a 2 week rolling period, some kind of strange thing. But if you're within 30 days, you're fine. 2 weeks certainly would be safe to check. So yeah, just go to Experian. I believe go to Experian.com/dispute. Get that report. You'll have a current report. You'll be able to see how they're reported. And when you dispute, if there's a change resulting from that dispute, the lenders, the medical collection services, will be required to notify anyone else they reported it to. So Experian wouldn't. That's why it's important to dispute with each of the bureaus and make sure that you check your report with them to make sure those changes are made. So pretty straightforward. Balance, but so I paid off your car, and I got to get the questions in the right order. So I paid off my car in July, and they reported it late. Now they just reported that it is at a zero balance, but no increase, just a decrease on this credit score. DNY 0131. So if you paid it off, you may see when you pay off a large note like a car loan, it may initially cause your scores to dip a bit. So don't be too concerned about that usually. If it's paid in full and it's reported as paid in full, never late. And I think that's the key in this situation, reported paid, never late. Your scores might dip initially for the first month or two, and usually they bounce back up. The reason is that's a big change in reports and scoring systems. Look at that and go, we don't know exactly what that means yet. And so they'll sometimes dip a few points and then they bounce back up. So don't panic too much about that. If you make big changes, I always kind of encourage people to not look at your report and scores right away. Give it a month or two, because those kinds of changes cause different scores to do different things. So, give it a little bit of time, let things stabilize, and then see what happens. It's also why we caution people, if you're going to make a major purchase, like buy a car or a house, that you don't do anything major until you've completed those transactions, just to be sure everything's stable. And that would be my guess in that situation, is if they're not reporting it as late. If an item was removed on the credit bureau, how do we get it removed from yours? So from one credit, so it should automatically happen. If you dispute an item with Experian, for example, and the source of that information comes back to Experian and says that item is incorrect, it should be removed, and we will remove it, or they actually tell us to take it off the report. They are then required by the Fair Credit Reporting Act to notify the other bureaus if they reported that account information to them, and tell them to take it off as well. We don't know where the lender reports everything. We know that they report to us, so we take care of our information. The law recognizes that the source of the information knows where they report everything, so they may report it to all three bureaus. They may report it to somewhere else, debit bureaus and other kinds of consumer reporting agencies. So they have the responsibility to remove it. So it's a good idea to check your reports and make sure they've done that at the others as well. Peaches72, thanks for inviting other followers. Bree from Kentland, thanks for joining. Nasim750, thanks for joining and being on Periscope. Welcome. If you have questions about credit reports, credit scores, fraud and identity theft, please feel free to ask. I'm Rod Griffin. I'm Director of Consumer Education and Advocacy for Experian. This is Credit Chat. I try to be here 1:30 Central, 2:30 Eastern on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I won't be able to make it this week. I'm going to be in New York. We're doing some media things with our PR team. So excited about that. I've been to New York maybe 4 times in 20 years, and for a total of maybe 5 days. It's like they always send me for an overnight trip. So someday I'm going to experience New York, one of the greatest cities in the world. But so far, I fly in an airplane, I get in a cab, I go to the hotel, and I go to wherever I'm meeting, and they send me home. So I haven't yet experienced New York. Someday I will. But I look forward to that trip. So I won't be here this Thursday. It was kind of the short version of that. But try to be here Tuesdays and Thursdays. I wasn't here last Thursday. I was at the National Educator Conference with Jumpstart and a ton of fantastic teachers who teach personal finance in our high schools and middle schools and even elementary schools. So had a great time and a great opportunity to talk to them, listen to them, understand their issues, help them learn information that they share with students. So really important to teach our kids about personal finance. So really rewarding. I'm hoping it's not cold. But this time of year, probably New York will be cold. Hola, welcome to Credit Chat. If you have questions, please feel free to ask. I'll do my very best to answer. Our goal is to have a conversation, to give you answers to the questions you have so that we share with other people. If you have questions, others have the same questions. I want to try to help answer those so that we can help as many people as possible learn how credit reports and scores work and how they can use them as a financial tool. They shouldn't be a mystery. And so that's a huge question I always have is why do we, and the challenge we have is how do we make sure they're not a mystery, that you can know exactly what's in your report, know what to expect when you walk into a lender, be able to qualify for the credit you need when you need it, and see it as a financial tool. We want to help people get the credit they need when they need it. We want to help lenders connect with those customers. We want to be a facilitator, not a barrier. So that's what we're trying to do, and that's what we want to do here. Do credit scores improve solely by age in some cases? Little buddy, no. Age doesn't really have anything to do with credit scores. They don't look at your birth date. They don't look at your address. They don't look at your name, any of those sorts of things, other than to match your credit report. They look at how you manage the debts you have. I was actually talking to somebody the other day. They were 27 years old. They had an 820 credit score. So not really age related. It's how you manage the credit that you have available to you. And if you do it well, you can have good credit scores. They're looking at the risk that you'll repay a debt as agreed, regardless of age or any other demographic factor. So, it's really about, do you manage your debts well? And are you a good manager of your finances? So the thing that I will say is, when we talk about age, think about it differently. How old is your credit report? How long have you used credit? The length of that credit history can help improve scores over time. So the longer you've had a positive credit history, the more impact it can have on scores. But your age as an individual has nothing to do with it. So I hope that makes sense. So the longer history is, that can help especially if it's positive. Tomorrow, and great tip, my Experian colleagues, thanks for reminding me. We're here on Wednesdays, 2 o'clock Central, 3 o'clock Eastern, on Twitter, and we have great chats with great experts. Tomorrow we're talking about what veterans need to know about credit to be successful, and financial tips for veterans. So that's going to be a fantastic conversation, with Veterans Day coming up. So really excited about that. I need to say happy birthday to my dad, who served in the Marine Corps. So he's a veteran and a fantastic dad. So happy birthday, Dad. That's today. Veterans Day is on November 11th. Which happens to be my birthday, oddly. Everybody celebrates my birthday on Veterans Day. What a cool thing. Not so little. But thanks for being here and for reminding me of that. We're giving away two $50 Amazon gift cards. Another reason to join the chat tomorrow. You can learn more at ex.pn/creditchat. And join us for that chat. It would be a great conversation. Little buddy, so it's not like car insurance, car make, model, etc. Not exactly, no. I mean, when they're looking at a car, how old is the car, and what condition is it in? But they also look at, they may look at your credit history when they're setting your rates for car insurance. Now, not about your age, it's about how you manage your debts, because they've correlated that with the likelihood you'll make a claim as well as your ability to pay the premium each month. So they don't predict that you'll be in a wreck. They're predicting the likelihood you'll make a claim. It's different. Sounds similar, but it's a different thing. So no, not exactly like car insurance in that regard. So they don't look at, an 18-year-old is going to pay, boy especially, is going to pay a higher interest rate than a 40-year-old man, and based on that age difference. We don't do that, and scores don't do that from a credit standpoint. How important is it to start an 18-year-old's credit? Jewels and threads. I would say this: it can be very important today to have a positive history established, because it has so much impact on a person's life beyond just getting a loan or a credit card. If you are going into the workforce, you're going to want to potentially buy a car. You're going to need to rent an apartment. You're going to need to get utility service. You're going to need a cell phone or a telephone service. All of those things will involve checking your credit report and can help you qualify for a new lease, pay lower security deposits, pay less for connection services and security deposits for utilities, pay less to get that new cell phone over time, or smaller down payments. So having that credit established as you become a young adult and become independent is very important in having that established. Now, that doesn't mean you have to have a lot of credit, but having an account open using Experian Boost, if you have a cell phone, for example, in your credit, in your name, and being able to include that information can help establish that history and help you begin to build that credit score. If you go to college, you're probably going to have student loans. That's probably going to establish that credit history for you for a lot of people. If not, again, same issue. Having a credit history established when you graduate can play an important role in getting your life set up as an independent adult. Employers may look at credit reports, not credit scores. Employers never get credit scores. I can't say that enough. But they may check your credit report, especially if you're applying for a job in a financial field. It's going to be an accountant or an accountant for a company or managing a company's money in some way. They may check your credit report to make sure that you manage your credit well so it can help you get that dream job. So make sure you know what's in your credit report. Have it established when you're young so it's there to work for you as you become independent. That's why it's so important. Is credit information free any other time? Yeah, so you can get credit reports free many different ways. So you can, if you enroll in Experian Boost, we'll give you a free report and score. And we'll give you a free score at the beginning and at the end of that process so you can see what improvement made. So, and that can take just a few minutes. If you enroll in a monitoring service, so if there's a data breach, for example, or you are concerned about fraud and you subscribe to an Experian monitoring service, you can get unlimited access to your report. So there's a fee in that regard, but it's unlimited. If you are unemployed seeking employment, if you're a victim of fraud or believe you may be, you can get reports for free. If you receive adverse action and are declined or don't get the best rates, you can get free reports. You can get a free report annually at annualcreditreport.com from each of the 3 national credit reporting companies. A number of states provide free reports for their residents in addition to the federal report. So if you live in Georgia, for example, they provide 2 reports a year for free. So there are a number of ways to get free reports. If you need to dispute information with Experian, you go to experian.com/dispute. If you don't have a report, we'll give you a free report so you can dispute the information in it. So a lot of ways to get free reports and to get free scores today too. So if you've exhausted all of those free opportunities, would you have to pay for a report? A credit report today is about $12.75, I think. It's been so long since I've talked to anybody who actually paid for a report. I can't remember exactly how much they cost, $12.50 or $12.75. It's kind of the exception today, and always has been. In fact, and I've been around long enough to know that before the free annual credit report system was enacted under the Fair and Accurate Credit Transactions Act, the FACT Act, 95% of the reports we provided to consumers were already free under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. So, yes, there are lots of ways to get free reports. Some better than others, obviously. Better to close a credit card that's paid off or keep it open with a zero balance. So Jetty, lots of 7s. I'm going to quit trying to read all of them. I get the number wrong. I think I've given a different number of 7s every time. If you are not going to use that card at all, you might want to close it. It will cause your scores to drop a bit initially because you lose the available credit limit on that card, which results in an increase in your utilization rate if you have other cards with balances. And so the scores will drop a bit, but they usually bounce back up. If you are maintaining a score, you might use the card. Doesn't hurt to keep it open. But you will need to use that card periodically. If you have an account, scores look at not only is it open, but is there activity. They need activity in the account to include them in the score. So if you have an account, zero balance, and you use it once a month, every couple of months to make a small purchase, pay that balance in full so you're not carrying debt on it, you will be able to show activity and it will contribute to your credit scores, and make sure you have that available credit limit that's going to help your utilization rate. So from that perspective, it's good to keep it open. And I will tell you, I've done both. I've had accounts where I've had lenders call and say, hey, you don't use your card. There's zero balance. Unless you tell us, we're going to close it. And there have been times when I've said, yeah, I don't really want it, and I'm not planning to apply for credit. Go ahead and close the account, check my report, and sure enough, my scores will go down a little bit, but within a billing cycle or two, so a month or two, they come back up. I've had others have that happen, and I look at it and think, I might use it, so I'll go make a charge and have that card and still have it there. So kind of look at your situation. Will you use the account? Do you need to continue to use it to help improve your scores and protect them, and make the decision there. Try to Experian Boost, but it does not accept all my bank accounts and auto debt bills. So it wouldn't. So Hearst Boy, it only applies to utility bills, so natural gas, water, electricity, and telecom. So cell phone bills, cable television bills, satellite television bills. So it only applies to those accounts and those payments, and they have to be paid through a savings account or checking account. If you pay them using a credit card, for example, we won't be able to capture that information at this time. If it's like a water bill and it's paid in conjunction through a municipality, for example, which also happened with me, we can't capture that because it doesn't show the water bill independently in the account. So there's some things we're working through, but be aware of that. So it doesn't look at all bank accounts and auto bills. It's just looking at those things. So cell phone bill, utility bills, telecom. So that's probably what's happening there. Svoboda 88. Hello, welcome, and good to see you. Been to Georgia. We'll be back to Georgia. My daughter lives in Georgia these days. Works for a great big soft drink company that shall remain nameless, but is based in Georgia and has its own museum. So if you can know who that is. Why does the employment update happen with your employer? And when, I think is the other key there. Revelation Ruth. The employment listing in your credit report is not an employment history, and it's not meant to be. The employers listed really act as an additional identifying piece of information. Employers are only updated with us when you apply for credit. So if you apply for credit, they'll say list your current and previous employers. That application information goes into the report. And so you may not see your current employer. If, for example, I've known people who have, say bought a car, applied for credit once, and it was 5 or 6 years ago, haven't applied for anything since, and have moved to another job or maybe 2 jobs. And the next time they apply several years later, they don't see their current employer. It's because that's not updated with us. It's simply that additional identifier. And so when you apply again and you list your current employer, that will be reported. You'll see that updated. So you may not see all of your employers, and that's okay. It's not meant to be a history. Give me a green card, please. As for Boat 80, I'm sorry that not what we do. That's an Immigration Naturalization Service, U.S. government thing, and we're not a government agency, so can't do that. Why does it count as a closed account if you paid off your entire student loan? Well, it's not that it's a closed account. When you have an installment loan, you pay off a certain amount each month until that total balance is paid or paid in full, and that's what your credit report shows. It shows paid. With a revolving account, a credit card. So revolving account's the term we use in the industry, but it means you can carry the balance or revolve it month to month. So if you pay that balance off, the account's still open. You can continue to make charges in the future. So it's reported as current zero balance, but it wouldn't say paid. So you see paid with an installment loan because that's what it is. If you have a car loan, same kind of thing. You have the car loan, you pay it off, so you pay a payment until it's paid, and that account's then updated to show paid. That's okay. We keep paid accounts in your credit report for 10 years from the paid date if there's never been any late history or delinquency. So we keep the positive information. You don't lose the history, so you don't have to worry about that. But paid is just a description of what it is. The balance is paid. So that's the way it shows for installment loan. With a credit card, you have to notify the lender, tell them you want to close that account, and so it would be reported as closed when you do that. So it's closed, meaning you can't make any more charges on it. So just different. Got penalized for paying off credit cards, go figure. Probably not for paying them off. Jam the one, probably because once they're paid, zero balance, if you didn't, several things that might have happened. If you didn't use them for a period of time, say 6 months or so, they may no longer be included in the score. That's why it's so important to make a small purchase so that there's activity every month or two. So you have that activity. So if there isn't any, the scores will no longer include them in the calculation. That can affect you sometimes, and I talk to people that happens too. Once they're paid off, if you close the accounts or ask them to close them, you lose the available credit limit, that affects your utilization rate. So it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, that if you leave them open, then you would have an open revolving account. And then if you use it, you would have an open active account showing payment history. Then you wouldn't have seen that. So those are my two guesses. If you asked them to close them, then it affected utilization rate. It wasn't that you paid them off, it's that they were closed. But that's a guess. I don't know for sure. And one thing of this, no credit card interest. And that's why I say pay the balance in full. You don't have to pay interest. If you use, and I say this often, credit and debt are not the same thing. You can have credit and use it as a financial tool. Debt's the financial problem. So if you have a credit card, you use it to make charges every month to take advantage of discounts in stores or airline miles or any number of incentives, reduced insurance rates, all those kinds of things that there are lots and lots of different incentives that they may offer. And then you pay the balance in full because you have the cash to do it. So you don't pay interest rates, you don't pay fees. You're taking advantage of credit, getting financial advantage because of that without having debt. It's when you use them to make charges, you have to carry balances over, which means you pay interest. If you can't pay them on time, now you have fees plus late payments. That's when debt becomes the problem. So think of credit as a financial tool and debt as a financial problem, and kind of approach it that way. That's kind of the way I look at it. I just saw the inquiry but didn't apply for anything. Employment inquiry. So if there's an employment inquiry and you didn't, did you apply for a job? I think that's the first thing to ask. That's a soft inquiry. It only shows to you on your personal report. It doesn't show to anyone else. Doesn't affect credit scores. So you don't have to worry about that. But an employer, in order to get your credit report, you must give them written permission first on a separate sheet of paper that says you're giving them permission to do so. So if you didn't do that, then they shouldn't have been able to get the report. That should be, if you applied for a new job, that's where it came from. And you should have given written permission for them to access that report. I am MJ Sharma. Great to see you. Thanks for being here. What is your feedback on Credit Karma? Jewels and threads. Not much, because they're a competitor to Experian. So, and that's about all I can say. The question I have is, would you rather get your report and scores directly from the source of that report and scores, or would you work through a third party just to get it from someone else and then do whatever it is they're doing with it? You come to Experian, you're getting it directly from the credit reporting company, from us, and we create the report, work with FICO, you get a FICO 8 score, or you can get a Vantage score 3.0, 4.0 when you get a free report, I think still. So the way to look at it. Lyndon Baptiste, thanks for joining. And I've been applying to jobs. So that's so probably in the application there's something that you signed. So that's always, you don't have to worry about that. It doesn't have a negative effect anyway. Thank you all so much for the great questions. We've already went through 30 minutes. It goes really fast. But thank you so much. Again, if you're just joining, I'm about to sign off. I'm Rod Griffin. I'm Director of Consumer Education and Advocacy for Experian. And a little chilly and icky, wet, wintry in Texas, so I've got my warm shirt on. But thank you all for being here and being part of the Credit Chat. Join me. I will not be able to be here this coming Thursday. Join us tomorrow on Twitter for a great conversation about veterans and finance. You can learn more about our Credit Chat and our Twitter and our Periscope at ex.pn/creditchat. I'll try to be here next Tuesday. Thank you all so much for being part of the chat, for all the fantastic questions, all the hearts. I'll talk to you all very soon. Take care, everybody.